war, economic sanctions? None of these issues can prevent Russia from carrying out its main strategy of political positioning, the sale of weapons. For years, the Kremlin has used its robust military industry to build relations with other countries, and this time it was India's turn. The sale of 8 units of the Tu-160 bomber, also known as the White Swan, was recently finalized, in accordance with an agreement signed several years ago, but which was only now completed. In this video we're going to review what geopolitical implications this sale may have, and how Russia is positioned on the Great World Board. Welcome to a new episode of Military Aviation. On August 7, 2022, one of the most anticipated deals by the Russian Federation in defense matters was confirmed: the sale of 8 Tu-160 heavy bombers to India. The first negotiations for this agreement began in 2019 and, between the COVID health crisis and the chaotic development of the war in Ukraine, the completion of the deal was severely delayed. The sale of Tupolev units is related to the aerial renewal that the Kremlin is carrying out, since together with the production of new bombers for its own use, the door was open to potential clients who want to get hold of one of those powerful metallic birds. Although Russia has economic problems, the truth is that its enormous industrial complex allows it to be a supplier of military equipment for various nations. That is their main bargaining chip when it comes to gaining geopolitical importance, be it in Latin America, Asia, or the Middle East. Vladimir Putin knows that he does not have the investment capacity of China, nor the political influence of the United States. What he does have is an assorted and cheap supply of weapons with which to foster alliances. The incorporation of countries like India to this client portfolio worries both Washington and other NATO members. This deal is surprising, not so much for the sale itself, but for the context in which it occurs. The United States is doing everything possible to isolate Russia economically, but cutting ties with a nation of such magnitude is not as easy as hypothesized at the start of the war in Ukraine in February of this year. For India, obtaining these bombers means a huge quantum leap in terms of its nuclear deterrent power. The Asian country did not have units with such capabilities, and if we take into consideration that these are the most up-to-date versions of the White Swan, the relevance is even greater. Let's get to know the protagonist of this situation in more detail. The Tu-160M is a variable geometry supersonic heavy bomber, but what does this mean? In the first place, that it is a ship with a brutal load capacity. It measures 54 meters in length and has a wingspan that varies between 55.7 and 35.6 meters, depending on the angle of its wings. This allows a maximum takeoff weight of 275,000 kilograms, which is made up mostly of weapons. Later we'll detail what destructive elements the White Swan can carry. As for the supersonic aspect, one of the defining characteristics of this ship is its amazing weight-to-speed ratio. Its power plant is made up of 4 Samara NK321 turbofan engines, which allows it to reach a maximum operating speed of 2,220 km per hour, with a range of 12,300 km. It is fast enough and has the necessary autonomy to carry out attacks in practically any area of the planet. Finally, the variable geometry wings are a highly innovative element that provides very interesting operational capabilities. By being able to change the angle, the plane can control its maneuverability both when taking off on short runways and when reaching its cruising speed at high altitudes. This flexibility is essential for a ship for tactical purposes and nuclear deterrence. But India is not going to shell out millions of dollars for the variable geometry wings, the speed, or the beautiful nickname of this plane. As we already mentioned, the main strength of the White Swan is its enormous capacity to transport weapons. Each Tupolev Tu-160M has 2 internal weapons bays, with a capacity of 40,000 kilograms, and which allows a wide variety of destructive combinations to be generated. From 24 satellite-guided KAB-1500L bombs to 40 KAB freefall bombs of 250 or 500 kilograms. In addition, it has 2 rotary missile launchers capable of firing Raduga Kh-15 nuclear missiles, cruise missiles, Raduga Kh-55, air-to-air projectiles of the Vimpel family, and anti-radiation and anti-ship missiles. It should be noted that the letter M in the name of this aircraft indicates that it is the most up-to-date version, with the GLONASS positioning system, avionics resistant to nuclear emissions and, as the icing on the cake, the ability to launch long-range Kh-90 Gela missiles. Despite the uproar, this is not the first time that India has ignored US recommendations and sanctions. It had already done so by negotiating for MiG-29 and Su-30 fighters, as well as S-400 anti-aircraft systems. With the sale of these 8 heavy bombers, it is demonstrated that the restrictions have only increased world polarization. Choosing who you negotiate with ends up being a choice of a political nature and a way of positioning yourself on an ideological level. Another reality is that there is no specialized bomber with the amazing capabilities of the Tupolev Tu-160M. The American F-35 can fulfill some surveillance and ground attack functions, but it has neither the speed nor the cargo capacity of the Russian aircraft. That's not to the detriment of the Lightning II, it's just not its specialty. In the absence of more variety on the market, who can blame India for choosing the most powerful units on sale? One really surprising thing about this transaction is that China, Russia's main ally globally, doesn't have the best of relations with India. Xi Jinping's government has had numerous clashes with its neighbor on the other side of the Himalayas, and, on paper, India frequently collaborates with the United States. Of course, geopolitical relations are not static and often have many faces. Perhaps the sale of bombers is the first step towards a regional alliance between India, Russia, and China. In fact, during the month of August, all these nations participate in the military exercises known as Vostok, which are carried out on Russian territory. This is the first edition since 2018, and the guest list also includes Belarus and Tajikistan. As stipulated in the contract, before the end of 2022, the Asian nation will receive its first 2 bombers. In 2023 it will receive the remaining 6 units, thus completing a truly powerful fleet. Currently the Russian Federation has 16 Tu-160M in service, so India will become the second world operator of this weapon. In the past, Ukraine also operated these ships as a Soviet heritage, but over time they were returned to Russia. At the moment, it is impossible to know if the sale of the White Swans has ulterior motives. What is certain is that Putin shakes hands with India by taking advantage of Russia's best political tool, its monumental military industry. If you like this content, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to keep up to date with all our news. Thank you for joining us. We will meet again in the next installment of Military Aviation.